Hello. It is Tuesday, November 30th, 1 o'clock, and it's the official Advent season. It's holiday time. It is Feliz Navidad time. Welcome to Tuesday Breakdown number 33. Merry Christmas early. Happy Thanksgiving late. Today is one of those great days right in the middle where we can be thankful and also be looking forward to the advent of the Messiah. That's what Advent really is. It's not just things you do when you light the candles in church, or another synonym for Yuletide, Christmas time. Advent literally means the coming of Jesus, the advent, the arrival of the King. And so it isn't just to prepare our hearts for Christmas Eve, Christmas Day, the birth of Christ's story that we celebrate, but it's also to prepare our hearts for his return, because he is coming again. And Advent is the ultimate of the already not yet theme of Christianity, which we celebrate. So I am decked out. I have decked the halls with boughs of, well, it's not holly. It's industrial grade plastic garland. You can see I put a lot of work into it today. I got the lights going on, and I got this Noel thing, and I wanted to talk about that a little bit today. In the theme, the topic today is Christmas carols, Christmas songs that are significant in our cultural heritage, cultural memory, the good ones, and the ones that we sing because they are nostalgic or sentimental, but they're really garbage if you think about it. So today, I will ruin a couple Christmas songs for you today, because I know people love it when Pastor Jeff ruins treasured verses of Scripture, treasured ideas. I wanted to say I don't love doing that, but that wouldn't be entirely true. I do quite enjoy poking holes in things that we should probably think about more so that we can get to better quality things. So we're going to talk about that a little bit today. I feel a little hoarse, and I'm not sure why, but I have my holiday cheer in a coffee cup. So, cheers. So, Sunday, we like to recap here on these breakdowns. Sunday, Pastor James delivered a Thanksgiving message on the story of the 10 lepers, as well as Ali did the same in Grace Latino. His was called At the Feet of the Master, and it was about worship and Thanksgiving. So, the question came up, how ahead of schedule do you schedule these types of weeks where I'm not in the pulpit? And for most of the time, we are scheduled out. Our sermon series is scheduled out probably a good 4 to 6 months out, with some flex built in. So, like, for example, this Luke series we've had on the calendar to wrap up in December since January. We knew those breaks we were going to do in the summer. We knew when we'd start up Luke again. We knew the narrative beats that we were going to follow. So we knew Easter in November was going to happen in January. And there are certain dates on the calendar that I always circle going into the next year of, okay, I know I'm going to be out of town for this at a conference, or this is when our family is going to want to take vacation. And occasionally, actually usually, you circle certain holiday weekends because you're expecting kind of a low turnout, or a holiday weekend where it's nice to have a break. So like Memorial Day, 4th of July, Labor Day, Thanksgiving weekend, the Sunday after Christmas, we have a new tradition here at Grace where the Sunday after Christmas is an elder-driven service. Although this year it's going to be a little weird because Christmas, the 25th, I believe, is a Saturday. So our Christmas Eve is going to be Friday, and then to turn right around and do another full worship service. So Gino is going to do that one, and then the elders will do January 2nd. So we've got all that mapped out. The question, though, is if you just started coming to Grace in the last 8 weeks, you now have seen every preacher on staff, because Gino preached in October, I believe. We had Ali and I did the tag team multicultural service at the end of October. John preached second week in November, and then James preached Thanksgiving. And I think the question wasn't how far in advance do you schedule these kind of replacement sermons, which isn't really fair to James or John or Gino, because they're not really replacements. Those guys are gifted in what they do, and we want to train them up to be growing in their ministries as well. And I think it is good for the church to hear different perspectives and different voices from the pulpit. I certainly don't think it's a bad thing at all to get variety in the preachers, but it is abnormal to have the last 8 weeks that we've had. So part of that was, yes, James had been scheduled for a long time. Part of that was the multicultural service happens whenever there's a fifth Sunday, so that happens. Part of it was I had 1 week left of vacation to use this year, and so we got John up there. So things like that happen, but generally speaking, and moving forward into 2022, we're going to map out a more consistent preaching pattern, and kind of my goal is to be on 6, off 1. I think that's the Sabbath principle at play. I love to preach. It is the number 2 thing on my job description, so I take it very seriously. And I want to train up good preaching in others so that I'm reproducing myself and not just doing the job but not developing anyone. That's not a good way to go about ministry either. But at the same time, I'm looking forward to being back in the saddle on a regular rotation starting in January. And the first sermon series in January will be the life of Joseph in the Old Testament, not Joseph in the New Testament, because there's not a lot about Joseph in the New Testament. And we're going to start that one out on the 3rd Sunday in January. First Sunday in January is Elder Service. Second Sunday in January is Vision Sunday. And then we start Life of Joseph in the Old Testament. And I'm expecting to do a lot of those myself, and that will be great. And it'll be a fun time. We don't know a lot about the life of Joseph in the New Testament, and that was actually something we were discussing today in our staff meeting. It's all the Christmas stories. Because as a pastor, as a preacher, and we like to share, this is the How the Sausage Gets Made video I do every week. Christmas is very difficult for preachers to be creative. Some pastors and preachers just love Christmas. They love the season. They love the nostalgia, the emotional piece that comes with it, the sentimentality. And I am pro-sentiment. I'm pro-sentiment. I'm pro-sentimentality. I'm the most nostalgic person you'll ever meet. Just ask me anything about my childhood, and I will bore you for hours. But I struggle when it comes to corporate worship because sentimentality is not the same as worship. Sentimentality is, oh, this means a lot to me, so I'm glad we did this, and it makes me feel good. Worship is, I need God, and I want to praise his name. And it's about him. Sentimentality is about us. And trying to thread that needle where you bring in some sentiment, but you're also making sure that you're worshiping God and not just, having a family time for the sake of family time, or, I remember the first time I went to a Christmas Eve service and it was so significant. And trying to thread that needle is hard. What makes it even harder is there's only so many sermons you can do on Mary and Joseph and shepherds, and wise men is such a misnomer. I prefer to think of them as pagan space wizards. But there's only so many sermons you can do about those things. And there's so much about Christmas and the first advent of Jesus that you never hear a sermon on that's in the Bible. Like the Bethlehem Massacre. Like, what was the census all about? Who was Quirinius? Interestingly, what happened to Joseph? Like, he's there, and then he must have died early, is what a lot of people think, because by the time Jesus is doing his ministry, it's just his mother and his brothers that come to get him when he's teaching, and they think he's crazy. His mom's at the cross, and he has John take care of his mom, which wouldn't happen if Joseph was still on the scene. So either Joseph was older when he married Mary, which probably 20s. Rabbinical marriage, we were talking about that a little bit this morning as well. But we don't know a lot about Joseph in the New Testament, and we don't want to make stuff up just for the sake of Christmas. But when have you ever heard a Christmas story about how Joseph isn't in a lot of the Bible? That's a weird sermon to do. How do you do a sermon on something that's not in the Bible? And a lot of the misnomers that we have in our sentimentality that aren't in the Bible Like the fact that the Magi, the pagan space wizards, were not at the manger. They came later when Jesus was in a house, but before they fled to Egypt. Um, it doesn't specify there were only three. It just specifies the three gifts, so there might have been more. So if you have a nativity set in your house, you probably don't want the pagan space wizards at the actual nativity. Um, you never hear a sermon on. You hear maybe a message on Simeon and Anna waiting for the Messiah. A whole thing on Zechariah and Elizabeth doesn't get a whole lot of mention. So there's a lot you could do. And so I have this crazy idea that next year, by next Christmas, I would like to have a Christmas album of new Christmas standards written for the stories you don't hear at Christmas. Gather around the tree. It's time for the census. I think that would play. There's Mariah Carey and then a song about the census. Yeah, let's do that. That was actually John's idea, the census. Gather around the tree. It's time for the census. I like that. Herod's a Clown. I think that would be a good Christmas song. Bethlehem Massacre. I don't know if that's as charming as it could. Maybe Flight to Egypt. That'd be a good Christmas song. The Pagan Space Wizards Come to Town. So I'm going to work on those and maybe have a Grace Church Christmas. So one of my first years here, I did What Was Christmas Really Like? Christmas Eve message. And I talked about what it would be like if you had to give birth in an animal stall, whether that was in a barn or if it was like the first floor of a first century house. There's a speculation. Historians disagree what it looks like, but it certainly was not a peaceful, charming nativity scene. I've been witness to 3 live births of human beings in my day. And it's a lot bloodier than you think. And to have that happen where animals are eating and defecating probably didn't smell nice. Probably was a lot more bloody than the Christmas cards make it. And I think we should start a scratch and sniff Christmas card industry of what the first Christmas was really like. Anyway, somebody came up to me after that. And as they were walking out, they were just visiting family. And they're like, that was an interesting Christmas service. I certainly have never had that message before. I was talking about the humiliation of God was the main point, and just how humiliating it was for God to enter this world that way. When we charm it up and pretty it up and put glitter on it, it takes away from what really happened. But anyway, they said, I don't know if I'm going to come back next Christmas because I'm not really comfortable hearing the word placenta when I come to church. I feel very proud of that. I want him to go to church. I don't want to be an obstacle for him not to hear the gospel. But that should be maybe a Christmas song too, because that happened at the first Christmas. There was a placenta. Sure. Anyway, I'm getting sidetracked. What I wanted to talk about today was Christmas carols in that same spirit. Because there's a running, it's not really a joke, it's a running narrative here on staff that goes back years. That I have a particular Christmas song that I cannot stand. I loathe it with the passion of 1,000 suns. That's a little strong. I guess I just don't really like it that much. But I have reasons for it. And it's one of Carissa's favorites. It was one of Mike's favorites when he was leading. And that is the song, The First Noel. The First Noel. And the reason I don't care for it that much is the melody is weird. It's just it's a minor key and it's not that catchy of a melody. But that's minor. I sing songs that I don't really like the melody on a lot of the times. The thing that gets me is the word Noel literally means in French, Christmas carol. Now it also means things like Christmas season and Yuletide and but in the context of the lyrics of the song, it is being used to mean Christmas carol, which is what it literally means in French. And if you think of the first line of the song, the first Noel, the angels did say. So the first Christmas carol was given to shepherds in fields as they lay. And then the chorus, you can sing it now in your head if you'd like, or out loud. Wherever you are, sing it loud. Noel, Noel. Noel, Noel. Born is the King of Israel. Now, one of the complaints that I get a lot from contemporary music over hymns, the hymn lovers among us, and I am one of them, but one of the complaints the hymn lovers like to say is how repetitive contemporary music is and how meaningful and deep the classic hymns are. And my usual first response is, well, what are your favorite hymns? And they'll say, How Great Thou Art. And I'll say, you know how repetitive that song is? That's really repetitive. It Is Well With My Soul. That's really repetitive. How many times do you say it is well in the course of that song if you're doing all 4 verses? Oh, no, that repetition is okay. Well, it seems like a little double standard. In fact, a lot of the contemporary songs we sing aren't very repetitive. Like Man of Sorrows has like verse, chorus, verse, chorus, bridge, another 4th verse. They're all some of these songs. There's a whole extra verse when you're kind of ready for the song to be done with all new content. So it's not really that repetitive. You know what is repetitive? You know what's crazy repetitive? And the worst part is what you're repeating means nothing. Christmas carol, Christmas carol, Christmas carol, Christmas carol. Corporate worship, that's what you're going to sing? Bah, nonsense. No, can't stand it. Let's all get together to worship Jesus by saying the word Christmas carol 30 times in a minor key. Boy, that's exciting. Doesn't do it for me. Can't stand it. But in a show of good faith, Merry Christmas and enjoy your Christmas carols. Because there's probably some I love that you can't stand, and that's okay. But I have a camera and an audience of 3. So I'm going to talk about it to the camera today. I'll balance it out with one of my favorite Christmas carols, O Come, O Come. I mean, O Little Town of Bethlehem. See, my brain. I do like O Come, O Come, Emmanuel too. O Little Town of Bethlehem is one of my favorites. The hopes and fears of all the years are met in thee tonight. Like, that's rich. That's depth. That's beautiful. O Holy Night is the top of the heap. That is the best. That I love. If you came here on Sunday, you saw our Christmas decor is here in force in the church. Much better than what I threw together here. But we have this giant print of O Holy Night from a hymnal. That's the first thing you see when you walk in. And I love it because it's such a beautiful song. And I'm a big fan of sheet music as a musician. But the lyrics to that are just about as good as it gets. And impactful. That one's a hard one to sing congregationally, though. It's a nice flowing 3/4, and it's a pretty song. But then you get to that repeated chorus, and everybody wants to go for that high jump on divine. And some people can do it, and other people can't. And then people want to go for it because you're singing it corporately, and that's okay. You should go for it. But then you always have kind of the lady in the church that always thought she could be Sandy Patty someday. Anyway, we might do that one just for fun. There's an Easter song similar to that, the Keith Green Easter song. Hear the bells ringing. They're singing that. Hear the bells ringing, which is also a running joke. When we did Easter in November, we thought we should bust that one out. But again, that joy to the world is risen, hallelujah is risen, and it just keeps going higher, he's risen. Keith Green could do it. I don't think I can do it. So corporate worship and Christmas carols is a weird thing. And I guess that's my point. Another piece of it is how many minor key Christmas carols we sing. I don't know if you recognize that. I mean, there's some good major key Christmas carols. Hark the Herald Angels Sing, Joy to the World, O Come All You Faithful. Those are nice, energetic, Go Tell It on the Mountain, major key, good kind of get everybody energized in the room, corporate worship. Those are good. But O Come, O Come Emmanuel, Angels from the Realms of Glory, What Child Is This? Come Thou Long Expected Jesus, O Little Town of Bethlehem. I mean, they're all kind of dark sounding musically. Great music though, and complicated music, and maybe that's why it stands out as being extra significant, because it's not just three chords. Some of the arrangements and chord progressions and melodies in Christmas carols are really, really hard that we could never get away with. By get away with, I mean, if we tried to introduce a new song to people where it wasn't locked into their consciousness as a cultural thing that had some of those moves and accidentals in the melody, and I think, like, hey, we have a new song we're going to introduce to you, and then anybody tries to learn it, ooh, in a corporate setting, wow, I don't know if we could do that. But we bust them out at Christmas time, and they're good and they're fun, and I look forward to them to an extent. But again, my running a church service brain just struggles with Christmas, because how many times can there's nothing creative anymore to do with the shepherds and the angels and Mary and Joseph without totally betraying the text of Scripture. Like, you could be creative and be like, this year we're going to do the Christmas scene from the donkey's point of view. Well, no, we're not, because the Bible is God's word, and if he wanted us to know what the donkey was thinking, he would have told us. So last year I did a whole thing on the Magnificat of Mary, her conversation with Gabriel, and how awesome Mary is, because she's awesome. She's not what the Catholic Church thinks she is, but she is awesome, and maybe the most awesome woman who's ever lived. Besides my wife, right? Sorry, I had to get that in there so I could feel like I'm a good husband there. But yeah, Mary is awesome. No doubt about it. But there's, at some point, coming into the Christmas season, that's what pastors think. Okay, how do I go about this again? We're back in it. The clock has turned, and it's time to do this again. Do I do 4 weeks on the names of the Messiah from Isaiah 9? Then everybody's going to have Handel's Messiah in their head, which is a good thing. Do we do Isaiah? Do we do prophecies of the Messiah, or do we do the birth narrative itself? Do we do Zechariah? And after a while, it's just kind of like, I've been down this path so many times. I've turned over every rock I can turn over. And then, but this is when it clicks. And this is good for me. What I learned through this process is people don't want to be tricked. People aren't looking for clever Christmas. They're looking for Christmas. The more clever it is, then it doesn't appeal to the sentimentality, which in some ways that sentimentality is good if it causes you to just get back to the text, get back to the basics. There's nothing, we don't need to be the smartest people in the room. We just need to celebrate the birth of Christ. And I know in my processing of doing this for a couple decades now, I try to be clever too much. And it's always a good reminder to just say, you know what, just read Luke 2. Just do Linus at the Charlie Brown Christmas. That's what Christmas is all about. It doesn't have to be complicated to be impactful. But my concern always is, I hope it rises beyond the level of sentimentality and into actual transformation. And some carols can do that. Some carols try to do that. Some sermons can do that. Some sermons try to do that. I can never promise anything. But the Spirit can make gold out of all of our garbage. And he certainly does for me on a regular basis. And that is what energizes me at Christmas time. And I'm pretty energized. It's going to be a sprint between now and December 25th. And I'm bringing all this up. It's still November 30th. You might be thinking, wow, you are really waxing elephants about Christmas. And maybe it's because it's on my mind. We set up our tree this weekend, and it is the Advent season. And if we wait till the 23rd to think about the arrival of Jesus, then it isn't Advent. So I guess my recommendation and challenge to everybody watching this, whoever you might be, is enjoy the sentimentality, enjoy the season, enjoy what it means that there is a time in our world where the majority of people rally together for peace and love and joy, whether they know Jesus or not. That still is kingdom values on display for everyone for like a whole month. And that is a beautiful thing. That's an amazing thing. We should embrace that. We should join in that celebration, be like, wow, this impacted our culture, and it is a wonderful thing. We don't need to fight for it. We don't need to defend it. Just let it be what it is. And if it's sentimental for people, but it brings about kingdom values in our world, that's an amazing thing. So I guess that's my main point is let's not overthink it too much in what it can be for our world and for us individually. At the same time, when we gather corporately, let's do things on purpose for the benefit of our souls, for the glorification of Jesus, and not just go through the motions of traditionalism, because that is not the same as corporate worship. And so trying to not go too far on one side or the other, I guess is the goal here. To not be so against the sentimentality that we miss what is beautiful about it, but not to be so immersed in it that we miss what worship's supposed to be. And how some of the lyrics and language of these carols can really still be as transformative as they were the first time we heard them. And then also you've got, I Want a Hippopotamus for Christmas, and Christmas Shoes, and The Last Christmas, and Do They Know It's Christmas? And those are pretty terrible too. So we still need to be redeeming our culture as best we can. But if you need to bust out your Mariah Carey Christmas, or in my case, I bust out Russ Taff Christmas. He did a bunch of old standards in the late 80s. It's still the best Christmas album I have. Or the Charlie Brown Christmas music, or Brian Setzer's got a really good one, or whatever it is for you that you love to do and listen to. Enjoy it and really reflect about the coming of Jesus. And if you listen to Mary, Did You Know? If you love that song, just remember, yes, she totally knew. That was her whole conversation with Gabriel. So every time that line comes up, just say to your speaker, or if you're in your car, just say, yes, yeah, she knew. But it's still a good reflective song because it does tell us about who Jesus is. That is someone else on staff. That's their first Noel. But I'm not going to reveal his name. It rhymes with John Gardner. So whatever it is that maybe you have, let us know if there's a particular, like, oh, I really love this, and here's why, and here's what it communicates. That'd be great. Or if you have similar pet peeves about Christmas, I'd love to hear them. So you can email those to me, and I'll share them next week on the Tuesday Breakdown. Because between now and Christmas, we've got a lot of Christmas to talk about. This Sunday, I will be teaching on the road to Emmaus. We have 2 weeks left in Luke. The appearance of Jesus to the disciples on the road to Emmaus, which is a phenomenal conversation. Love that one. And we're going to talk about how everything in the Old Testament points to Jesus. So there is some Advent in there, because he told the disciples how everything from Moses to the prophets was always about the Messiah, and their eyes were opened, and then he disappeared. And we'll also be sharing communion this Sunday as well. And then on December, what would that be, 12th? I think it's the 12th. We're going to finish Luke, and it's the final instructions Jesus has in his appearance to the disciples. So it's the one appearance he has to the disciples in the Gospel of Luke. And we'll talk about that. And bearing witness to Jesus is kind of the idea of that one. So go tell it on the mountain kind of stuff on January 12th. And then the 19th, we'll go full blown, all Christmas, all the time. Maybe do a sermon on the pagan space wizards. Maybe the shepherds and the angels, but I'm not going to try and get tricky. I'm just going to tell you what's in the Bible, and that is more than enough. So it's 29 minutes here that I've been ranting and rambling. I hope this was worth your time. It certainly was fun for me to reflect on some of those things. And I'm going to search my own heart to see what is sentiment and what is transformative. And maybe some things are both. So that's okay too. Thank you for everybody who's watching now. I'm very, very thankful for you. Blessings upon you, my friends. And to anybody who's watching later, I'm very, very thankful for you as well. Blessings to you. And if there's anybody that isn't watching, and those of you who are watching, no, they're not watching, maybe you can recommend this to them if you think it's worth their time. So have a wonderful rest of your week and your sprint to Christmas. I hope it is as enjoyable as I expect mine will be. Feliz Navidad.